Hey everyone, Samuel here. I hope everyone's doing okay these days. I hope that teleservice is proving good for everyone. Uh, I'm a little self-conscious being on video, but we're gonna try to make this work. Before really the last day that the CNNC office was open, I stopped by and Kelsey White, one of the health workers at CNNC, offered to let me borrow this book, any book on her shelf. I grabbed it off the shelf with two fingers, pandemic style, and it's been at my home since. And I thought that I would read it, and I thought I'd share the contents of it over YouTube and hopefully get some hours and maybe share some helpful information with y'all. So I'm learning from this book right now. I have only read the first chapter, which I'll be talking about right now. The name of this book is Models of Practice with Immigrants and Refugees, Collaboration, Cultural Awareness, and Integrative Theory by Amy Hiladu and Marta Lundy. So sort of the point of this book is community-based, trauma-informed social work practices for immigrants and refugees. There were a few good quotes that sort of explained a good statement of purpose for this book is here at the end of chapter 1. It says, through the lens of trauma, mental health, and well-being, this book provides entree to a discussion of multi-level, dynamic approaches to serving immigrants and refugees through an integration of Western theories of intervention with cultural understanding relevant to the populations resettling in countries across the globe. We have an opportunity to support communities of immigrants that have served as the bedrock for societies across the world, and this book is just one tool in achieving this goal. Seems like something that we are a part of. So chapter 1 begins with a lot of statistics, most of them from 2014, 2015, and lots of maps to go with these statistics, mostly sourced from the UNHCR. Now, these maps are really interesting, but they're not super useful to us because since this information, the numbers have really changed and the situation on Earth has changed. So what I'll do is provide a link in the description box of the new map, which is like this really amazing population statistics map on the UNHCR website. It says that of all the people in all the different categories that qualify under UNHCR rules as people who have gone through involuntary or forced migration, there are nearly 75 million people. And that number was recorded at the end of 2018. That's the newest number. So this map on this website has a line that goes up and up and up each year, and now you can see that we're at the highest number of involuntarily migrated people in recorded human history. The next section details the reasons for migration that fall under the category of forced migration, also called involuntary migration. The first category is conflict-induced displacement, which includes civil war, community violence, and threat as a result of persecution in home country. The second category is development-induced displacement, people who are moved as a result of projects that intend to develop a region, such as mining, deforestation, building of infrastructure, roads, ports, or even conservation efforts. And the last category is disaster-induced displacement, which we all know what disasters are because we have to do our disaster prep courses. But all those things that are in that category, including, global warming related displacement and industrial accidents. And the common theme in these all of these situations is they all pose a threat to the safety and survival of the individual. So then they go on to define a few more terms. Survival migration, which is something people say, the book says, when you leave your home country and then you can't return for fear of your safety. It defines the term displacement as a word that people use to define more broadly the changes that people face in identity, in culture, in the labeling of themselves, and displacement being not only physically being displaced from where you were living, but being cut off from a lot of things that you had in your home country that you used to recognize yourself and your relationship to the world. It also defined push and pull factors. The basic theory around immigration is that someone will immigrate if they have a reason to leave and they have an idea that once they go somewhere, there'll be something better for them. So that's what that means. There are push factors that push people out, and there are pull factors that pull people into a new place. The next section discusses something that I think we're all very familiar with, which is that the rhetoric and policies around immigration affects immigrant communities worldwide. And the example that it goes into great detail with is how post 9/11 there was a real crackdown on immigration in the United States and people going back and forth, and it relates that to a fear in society of people coming from the Arab world and Muslims in general. And it draws a distinction between policies that are based in protecting people from terrorism and policies that are just stoked by general public fear, maybe of the unknown or of real prejudices and discrimination based on ignorance. It defines it as public safety rhetoric. It got me immediately thinking about what our current president talks about in speeches about immigrants coming from Central and South America and criminality and drug trafficking and gangs and all these things. That being, a newer form of the public safety rhetoric that I think has more to do with the imaginations of the people saying it than it does with what's really going on in the world. An important sentence. An examination in cross-national studies has found that the perception of threat or fear toward immigrant groups directly influenced the expansiveness of immigrant integration policies. The higher the perception of a threat towards immigrant, the higher the restrictions are towards immigrants, even upon arrival and getting used to living in the new home, in this case, the United States. On the other hand, a related finding suggests that when immigrant integration policies are conducted in a way that supports new immigrant adjustment into a new society, the attitudes of key policymakers can also be influenced to be less critical of immigration. Okay, so it's in this context that the book then gives a huge infographic on the full screening process that anyone with refugee status goes through in order to be allowed to move to the United States, which I will read because why not? I think it'll help us. 1. Many refugee applicants identify themselves. Okay, so first, in outside their home country, having fled the country that they had to migrate from, usually they would identify themselves to United Nations Refugee Agency, give documents, have an initial assessment, which includes bio data, name, address, birthday, birthplace, biometrics from iris scans in some places, and interviews. The applications are received from the UN to a resettlement support center in the United States. They collect identifying documents, they create an applicant's file, and they compile information. So they have all of this information on record from the beginning. Following that, they have a biographic security check. Starts with enhanced interagency security checks, which I don't even know what that means, but it's like counterterrorism, FBI, Homeland Security, State Department, screening for indicators of anyone who has any connection to anybody who has ever been a security risk, connections to something called bad actors. I don't even know what that means. Criminal history. That's the first United States security check. After that, there is an interview with the Department of Homeland Security, in which they get fingerprints. Now, this is like, there have now been 3 opportunities for the person to be denied resettlement. After that, there's a biometric security check having to do with the fingerprints in the FBI database. They're screened against U.S. Department of Defense biometric database. All this information is going around from all of the different United States departments to try and get as much information as possible about this person. That's another hurdle. Then there's a medical check, and if they don't pass the medical check due to medical reasons, then they're not qualified for resettlement. After that, there's cultural orientation and assignment. So there are actually classes that our friends go through before resettlement, which I didn't know. There's another health assessment to figure out where's the best place for the person to live. Like if they have asthma or something, they're not going to be, put in a place where that would hurt their asthma, like New York City. I'm not sure. Like many of the apartments where our clients are living that have mold and haven't been checked. Like, all right. Then a location is chosen. More vetting. Just says more vetting. Then if they have no flags, then they continue. Then there's travel. Prior to entry into the United States, of course, they have to pass border control, meaning like customs and yeah, the Transportation Security Administrative Secure Flight Program. I'm not sure what that is. Then arrival at the U.S., of course, refugees are required to apply for a green card, and then there are another set of security procedures with the United States government as a result of that. And then right here at the bottom it says, refugees are woven into the rich fabric of American society, which we are seeing, each of us with our own experiences with America and with our clients and friends who have gone through this process. The next section argues something which I think we all agree on, which is for all of American history, and now immigrants have been a huge asset to America. It gives a really interesting fact, which is that 25.3% of all engineering and tech companies in the United States have at least one key immigrant founder, and that these immigrant-founded companies amassed more than $52 billion in sales and created like 450,000 jobs. It calls immigration generates unambiguous gains. And then the last part of this chapter advocates for societies which accept and support immigrants and have humane policies, public benefits, and an educated public to help create a society in which every person, regardless of background, is guaranteed basic human rights and freedom from fear of persecution, liberty, health, and education. It says this book will help with that. So, great. We'll read on soon. Stay well, everyone. Thank you.